Hello Gladys.
George.
Hello everyone out there. Welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud, my mum calls me James. Tonight I've got a few poems that I've written myself. A dedication to a poet called Derwent, who was born in 1907 and I think he passed away in 1999. So anyway, and I've got a few from Adam, Gordon, Lindsay tonight and a few from myself as well. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we stand and the band by, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Right, to start with, I'm going to go all the way back to Adam Lindsay Gordon, and he was born in England in 1833 and he came out to Australia in 1853 when he was 20 years old, and he took his own life in 1870, so he didn't really live that long at all. But he did spend time, he was elected to the South Australian Parliament. And this one is titled From Lightning and Tempest. Adam Lindsay Gordon. The spring wind passed through the forest and whispered low in the leaves, and the cedar tossed her head and the oak stood firm in his pride. The spring wind passed through the town and through the housetops, casements and eaves, and whispered low in the hearts of the men, and the men replied, singing, let us rejoice in the light of our glory and beauty and might. Let us follow our own devices and foster our own desires. We, as firm as our oaks and our pride as our cedars, fair in our sight, we stand like the trees of the forest that brave the frosts and the fires. The storm went forth to the forest, the plague went forth to the town, and the men fell down to the plague as the trees fell down to the gale, and their bloom was a ghastly pallor, and their smile was a ghastly frown, and the song of their hearts was changed to a wild, disconsolate wail, crying, God, we have sinned, we have sinned. We are bruised, we are shorn, we are thinned. Our strength is turned to derision, our pride laid low in the dust, our cedars are cleft by thy lightnings, our oaks are strewed by thy wind, and we fall on our faces seeking thine aid, though thy wrath is just. And then there's a few little short ones from Adam Lindsay Gordon, born 1833 to 1870. The Swimmer. I would that with sleepy soft embraces the sea would fold me, would find me rest in luminous shades of her secret places, in depths where her marvels are manifest. So the earth beneath her should not discover my hidden couch, nor the heaven above her. As a strong love shielding a weary lover, I would have her shield me with shining breast. And the next one is How We Beat the Favourite. Dark brown with tan muzzle, just stripped for the tussle, stood Isolde, arching her neck to the curb, her lean head and fiery strong quarters, and wiry a loin rather light, but a shoulder superb. And the last one from Adam Lindsay Gordon is The Sick Stock Rider. The deep blue skies wax dusky, and the tall green trees grow dim. The sward beneath me seems to heave and fall, and sickly smoky shadows through the sleepy sunlight swim. And on the very sun's face weave their pall. Let me slumber in the hollow where the wattle blossoms wave, with never stone or rail to fence my bed. Should the sturdy station children pull the bush flowers on my grave, I may chance to hear them romping overhead. Interesting. Yeah. Now, the next group of poetry I'm going to read tonight are by Derwent Hope, or A.D. Hope. He was born in Cooma in New South Wales in 1907, died in 1999. He was educated at Sydney and Oxford University, and he was considered an often controversial figure who used his erudite mind and wicked wit to a devastating effect as a critic. This one's called Tiger, and I'll just explain that it has two parts to it. The first part is about paper tigers, and the second part is about real tigers. And a paper tiger has a meaning of something that might appear fierce but has no substance to it. Tiger. Someone told me that this was read to them as like the last poem before they left high school, so it's quite interesting, and perhaps it could be something that could be read to people leaving high school. Yeah. The paper tigers roar at noon, the sun is hot, the sun is high, they roar in chorus, not in tune, their plaintive, savage hunting cry. Oh, when you hear them, stop your ears and clench your lids and bite your tongue. The harmless paper tiger bears strong fascination for the young. His forest is the busy street, his den's the forum and the mart. He drinks no blood, he tastes no meat, he riddles and corrupts the heart. But when the dusk begins to creep from tree to tree, from door to door, the jungle tiger wakes from sleep and utters his authentic roar. It bursts the night and shakes the stars till one breaks blazing from the sky. Then listen if to meet it soars your heart's reverberating cry. My child, then put aside your fear, unbar the door and walk outside. The real tiger waits you there, his golden eyes shall be your guide. And should he spare you in his wrath, the world and all the worlds are yours. And should he leap the jungle path and clasp you with his bloody jaws, then say as his divine embrace destroys the mortal part of you, I too am of the royal race who do what we are born to do.
That's excellent.
Yeah, really lovely poem, that one. It's got a nice rhyme and rhythm to it. Yeah. All right, some more of A.D. Hope's poetry now. Two more. The first one is Pyramids, or the House of Ascent. So this is about pyramids and that kind of stuff. Egyptology, Egypt. This is their image, the desert and the wild, a lone man digging, a nation piling stones under the lash in fear and sweat in haste. Image of those demonic minds who build to outlast time, spent life to house old bones, this pyramid rising squarely in the waste. I think of the great work, its secret lost, the solid, blind, invincible masonry. Some challenges the heart, neglect and greed have left it void and ruin, sun and frost fret it away, yet all foretold I see, the building answering. Let the work proceed. I think of how the work was hurried on, those terrible souls, the pharaohs, those great kings, taking like genius their prerogative of blood, mind, treasure. Tomorrow I shall be gone. If you lack slaves, make war. The measure of things is man, and I of men. By this you live. No act of time limits the procreant will. And to subdue men seems a little thing, seeing that in another world other than this, the gods themselves unwilling await him still, and must be overcome. For thus the king takes for all men his apotheosis. I think of other pyramids, not in stone, the great, incredible monuments of art, and their builders, men who put aside consideration, dared and stood alone, strengthening those powers that fence the failing heart, intemperate will and incorruptible pride. The man alone digging his bones a hole, the pyramid in the waste whose images. Blake's tower of vision defying the black air, Milton twice blind groping about his soul for exit and swift raving mad in his, the builders of the pyramid everywhere. Interesting. And this book has hardly ever been opened, so it just shows you how
Yes, it just shows how
unappreciated some poets are. The final one I'm going to do now is morning meditation. Every day of my life, I shave the beard from my chin, suppress the natural man, do my bit in the strife to keep original sin as much at bay as I can. Day after day after day, I wake and lather and scrape, looking myself in the eye. I grin at my image and say, look at the hairy ape, wishing himself goodbye. Granddad, he had a beard, randy old son of a gun, even when it was white. He, if a wench appeared, would roar to get her a run and catch and cuddle her tight. Father, too, had a black stubble upon his chin every day of his life. With a hollow blade he would hack at the natural man within. He did it to pleasure his wife. She was a handsome jade, black undauntable eyes, snug bottom and well-turned calf. When father had stropped his blade, he would reach between her thighs, pluck out a hair and laugh. Then, in his 60th year, seeing the black jowl haul, he lathered and gave a groan, took himself by the ear, picked up the blade once more and cut his throat to the bone. Grandfather took his fun, rolled in all manner of hay. Father could bell the cat, but died of seeing it done. I kept the beast at bay with a safety razor of that. Having no child or wife, sin or superfluous hair, I live by the golden rule. And every day of my life, I think of that sinful pair and curse myself for a fool. Yeah. A.D. Hope. That's, there's one more in here that I was going to read, but probably won't now. Oh, I found it. Yeah. Pasiphae. So Pasiphae was a Greek princess who fell in love with a king and married the king, and she shouldn't have, and she got cursed to then fall in love with a bull. And then she dressed herself in a wooden bull, and then she had a child who was the bull-headed Minotaur. So in Greek mythology. There stood the mimic cow the young bull kept, fast by the nose ring, trampling in his pride, nuzzled her flanks and snuffled her naked side. She was a queen, to have her will she crept. In that black box, and when her lover leapt, and fell thundering on his wooden bride, when straight her fierce frail body crouched inside, she felt the wet pizzle pierce and plunge, she wept. She wept for terror, for triumph, she knew, she wept to know. Her lover unable to embrace its bliss, so long imagined waking in the sleep. But when within she felt the pulse, the blow, the burst of copious sea, the burning kiss, filled her monstrous life, she did not weep. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now it's time for some of my poetry.
Yes, George, I would imagine so.
Yeah. It's been a good week. I've given myself a few poetry challenges this week by asking people to give me a word or a poetry prompt, because I had a bit of mental blank. I'm like, I don't know what to write about. And so instead, I got people to give me topics to write about. If you want to support me, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Thundercloud, and you can donate if you like my poetry, and also over there too. Okay. The Thundercloud Winter Poetry Challenge. The first one that I was given this week was by Adam Slyderink, a friend of mine that I went to university with, and the topic was resonance. And I based the poem on the Hermetic principles, or the 7 Hermetic principles of Hermes Trismegistus, or the Egyptian god Thoth. Resonance. As above, so below. Vibrate fast or vibrate slow. To know high we need low. Red is stop and green is go. All is mind and all time. Vibrations make rhythm rhyme. Straight is circle and a bender. Everything has both gender. To know love you must know hate. Every mind does resonate.
Oh, George,
Resonance, that is. And then Jan Day, she gave me the topic of snow. So we had a lot of snow here in Guyra last week. And this is about Sammy Snowman. Sammy was a snowman and had a lot of fun, even though poor Sammy couldn't even run. With pebbles for his eyes and a carrot for his nose, Sammy was a snowman who couldn't touch his toes. A scarf about his neck and sticks for his arms, a friendly happy smile, Sammy had some charms. Sammy was a snowman who had a lot of fun, and after winter ended, he melted in the sun.
Oh, George.
A nice little kid's one. And then finally, one more. From my winter poetry challenge, Muriel Smith gave me Paris as the topic. Now, I've been to Paris and I got married there with my near Paris, to my second wife who was Parisian. So I know I've got my sort of vision of what I've seen in Paris as a sort of a visitor. Paris. Dressed to impress in an intricate dress is Paris. Walking this city, everything is pretty in Paris. Waiting for hours to ascend Eiffel Towers, it's Paris. So much I can say about Champs-Élysées and Paris. Ascend to Montmartre and see beautiful art above Paris. Don't forget Notre Dame, rose window charm of Paris. En français, c'est terrifique, le trafic horrifique at Paris. And if you can bear tourists everywhere, you'll love Paris with a croissant every day by the Seine Cafe. It's Paris. That's my winter poetry challenge. And then this is my abridged version of how McDougall topped the score. But before I do that, I'm going to read to you a famous Australian poet, and he's only famous for really one poem. His name is Thomas Edward Spence, and he was born in 1845 and he died on the 6th of May 1911. He was a building contractor and a writer, and he came to the Victorian goldfields in 1863 with his brother when he was 18, and then he had a fairly limited writing career. Bindawalla, an Australian story, some short stories, but he's most famous for this one called How McDougall Topped the Score, and it's about a game of cricket. A peaceful spot is Piper's Flat, the fold that live around. They keep themselves by keeping sheep and turning up the ground. But the climate is erratic, and the consequences are the struggle with the elements is everlasting war. We plough and sow and harrow, then sit and pray for rain, and then we all get flooded out and have to start again. But the folk are now rejoicing as they now rejoiced before, for we've played Molongo at cricket and McDougall topped the score. Molongo had a head on it and challenged us to play a single innings match for lunch, the losing team to pay. We were not great guns at cricket, but we couldn't well say no, so we all began to practice and we let the reaping go. We scoured the flat for 10 miles round to muster up our men, but when the list was totaled, we could only number 10. Then up spoke big Tom Brady. He was always slow to speak, and he said, "What price, McDougall, who lives down at Cooper's Creek?" So we sent for old McDougall, and he stated in reply that he'd never played at cricket, but he'd half a mind to try. He couldn't come to practice, he was getting in his hay, but he guessed he'd show the beggars from Molongo how to play. Now McDougall was a Scotchman, and a canny one at that. He started into practice with a paling for a bat. He got Mrs. Mac to bowl to him, but she couldn't run at all, so he trained his sheepdog Pincher how to scout and fetch the ball. Now Pincher was no puppy. He was old and worn and grey, but he understood McDougall and accustomed to obey. When McDougall cried out, "Fetch it," he would fetch it in a trice, but until the word was "drop it," he would grip it like a vice. And each succeeding night they played until the light grew dim, and sometimes McDougall struck the ball, sometimes the ball struck him. Each time he struck, the ball would plough a furrow in the ground, and when he missed, the impetus would turn him 3 times round. The fatal day at last arrived. The day was that to see Molongo bite the dust, or Piper's Flat knocked up a tree. Molongo's captain won the toss and sent his men to bat, and they gave some leather hunting to the men of Piper's Flat. And when the ball sped where McDougall stood firm planted in his track, He shut his eyes and turned around and stopped it with his back. The highest score was 22, the total 66, when Brady sent a Yorker down that scattered Johnson's sticks. The Piper's flat went into bat for glory and renown, but like the grass before the scythe, our wickets tumbled down, 9 wickets down for 17, with 50 more to win. Our captain heaved a sigh and sent McDougall in. £10 to 1, you'll lose it, cried a barracker from the town. But McDougall said, I'll take it, mon, and planted the money down. Then he girded up his moleskins in a self-reliant style, threw off his hat and boots, and faced the bowler with a smile. He held the bat the wrong side out, and Johnson, with a grin, stepped lightly to the bowling crease and sent a wobbler in. McDougall spooned it softly back, and Johnson waited there, but McDougall, crying, fetch it, started running like a hare. Malongo shouted victory, he's out as sure as eggs, when Pincher started through the crowd and ran through Johnson's legs. He seized the ball like lightning, then he ran behind a log, and McDougall kept on running while Malongo chased the dog. They chased him up, they chased him down, they chased him round, and then he darted through the slip rail as the scorer shouted, 10! McDougall puffed, Malongo swore. Excitement was intense as the scorer marked down 20. Pincher cleared a barbed wire fence. Let us head him, shrieked Malongo, brain the mongrel with a bat. Run it out, good old McDougall, yelled the men from Pincher's flat. And McDougall kept on jogging, and then Pincher doubled back, and the scorer counted 40 as they raced across the track. McDougall's legs were going fast, Malongo's breath was gone, but still Malongo chased the dog. McDougall struggled on. When the scorer shouted 50, then they knew the chase would cease, and McDougall gasped it out, drop it, as he dropped within his crease. Then Pincher dropped the ball, and as instinctively he knew, discretion was the wiser plan, and he disappeared from view. And as Malongo's beaten men exhausted lay around, we raised McDougall shoulder high and bore him from the ground. We bore him to McGuinness's where the lunch was ready laid, and filled him up with whisky punch for which Malongo paid. We drank his health in bumpers, and we cheered him 3 times 3. When Malongo got its breath, Malongo joined the spree. And the critics say they never saw a cricket match like that, when McDougall broke the record in the game at Piper's Flat, and the folk are jubilating as they never did before, for we played Malongo cricket, and McDougall topped the score.
Not John.
That was a good one, yeah. Thomas E. Spencer, that was written by.
Oh, that's it.
All right, so now here is my shortened version that I wrote in response to that.
Oh, right, John. Sure.
But it's only 8 lines, so it's pretty quick. There was a man from Cooper's Flat asked to play a game of cricket. When the ball was hit to him, he couldn't take a wicket. As the ball was coming, he let it hit him on the bum. He'd never played before, and his catching skills were none. He was last to bat. His team needed 50 runs to win. He hit the ball for 4, and his dog named Pincher ran in, grabbed the ball and ran through the bush and had a lot of fun, while the man from Cooper's Flat made 50 runs.
Oh, John.
So that's my answer to that.
Oh, good.
And there's a couple more I'm going to do tonight. ocean. So this was part of my poetry prompts, and the two prompts were the breath and the ocean and ocean. The breath of wind on the ocean caught the sails. They billowed out, and along came a pod of whales, took a deep breath and dived into the blue ocean. That breath of wind cast a spell like a magic potion. Early one summer morning I woke from my sleep, stretched, took in a breath, and the whales came from the deep ocean, and they all began to jump and breach while the breath of wind blew our yacht to the beach. We sat silently on the beach and deeply inhaled, watching a pod of magnificent humpback whales. Then we ran into the ocean, and suddenly we could see what it was like to be a whale swimming in the ocean free. Back on shore we inhaled and took a deep breath, held it long, exhaled, and then experienced ego death. On the beach, all united, we sat in the warm morning sun. Us, the whales, the ocean, the earth and universe were one.
That's it.
All right, and yeah, okay. I'm going to do my one. This is poetry prompt by my friend Leanne Romany Lilly. Time is like. It's a bit of a funny one. Time is like a trip to the toilet. A long line to wait will spoil it. Or you might walk straight in and find an overflowing bin. Hasn't been cleaned for a while. Sometimes, and toilets are vile. Some visits are very quick, other times will make you sick. Then at times you'll feel queer, spraying vile diarrhea, vomiting and on your knees, or on time and clean, like Japanese toilets with technology that warm your bum as you pee. Sit and happily contemplate. Check the time. Oh shit, I'm late. Time is like a trip to the toilet. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't think of anything else what time is like. And the last one is about sightseers, and that's a poetry prompt by Jane McGinty. Sightseers. I guess there were lots of sightseers here last week for the snow day.
Yes.
But I didn't really write about that. I wrote about creative sightseers. Anyway, I'll read it to you. Opening our heart and our third eye, we become creative sightseers. Artistic inspiration downloaded transcends time and years. As coloured palettes mix paints, word spells transcend time. Gardeners turn soil, plant seeds mix in lime. Future visionary inspiration, future sight will be enjoyed when our hearts and our third eye open and employed. Creating art, poetry, music, architecture, gardens of trees, hearts and third eyes open, creative sight sees.
Good.
Yeah. And that's it for me. Are you going to do your
Yes,
one
John,
tonight?
your one
All
tonight.
right. Well,
I think I've got it in here. Right.
we'll move that out of the way because we can't see you otherwise.
Woo. Yes, this is just the one you jumped.
All right. Okay.
Now this one.
I took that out of the way because we can't see you behind.
That's all right. I can
Yeah.
read here. This one is just called Australia.
Okay.
We live in this wonderful country that's divided by land and sea, where our lands export for freedom to keep us all safe and free. With this ever-growing nation of ours, there's so much to share. Let's all stand together as proud Australians to show that we really care. The rugged landscape of the bushland with peacefully flowing rivers and streams. Our beautiful scenic view of the historic Blue Mountains is the envy of one's dreams. Still, all of nature's creations, nothing can compare to the everlasting eucalyptus and sweet-smelling scent of wattle that drifts in the evening air. But even with good intentions, many still like to brag about our precious icon, the good old Aussie flag. We should all be thankful in this life, as there's peace forevermore, with our villains and bush rangers of long ago that have now vanished from our shore. The kangaroo and emu, koala, our cockatoo, and the red glow of the setting sun hangs over Uluru. Please raise our hands to salute our country that's ever so rich and rare. Now come on mate, let's celebrate Advance Australia Fair.
Well done.
Thank you, guys. I'll read this on Saturday morning with the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Gladys.
Good.
Much appreciated.
Yeah.
I reckon I got one more before
Yes,
we go.
don't you read one more?
I got one more here.
Read one more.
So,
You're entitled to do that.
yeah. Where am I? Alright, one more that I've written this week.
And put this out in my bag, I'll leave it behind, don't I?
Yeah, oh no, we don't want that. Alright. Okay, this is one more about snow. Don't eat yellow snow. No, that's not it. Alright. Snow. Crystal, fractal, glisten, falling softly, I listen. Snow. Outside winds blow, feels like 8 below. Wind. Day ends, night begins, wet shoes walk in, swash. Give those clothes a brush, little ones, shiver, hush. Silence. Snowbanks against the fence, chill, wrapped, cold, dense weather. Yeah, it's a cold one. That's another one of my my winter poetry prompts. Yeah. So, I got any more before that? Not really, because I had writer's block all week, and that's why I had to ask people to give me poetry prompts. So
well, James, that's
it's
it.
lucky
Right,
they
yes,
did.
when you're entitled. So
yeah.
that.
Thanks,
No,
Gladys, for
then
coming
I
tonight,
like
and thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
No,
yes. All right,
Is
we'll
that
turn that off.